Hello, welcome to this new video. This time I want to do something that I believe I should have done before, and some people have asked me about it. And that is how to install Kali Linux on VMware, free version, in this case VMware Player. One of the reasons why I didn't want to create a video like this is because there are so many variables that could happen and that take place depending on the version of the OS you're using, depending on the version of the hypervisor, so on and so forth. But I decided to create this video for the absolute beginners. If you follow me on the different videos that I create, this is one of the most basic videos that I'm creating. I'm teaching those who would like to get into cybersecurity, networking, and they want to do their first installation of Kali Linux, and we're going to be doing that on a VMware environment. Now, for this video, I already have VMware Player installed. As you could see here, I am running an older version of that on Windows, and it's version 16. This is free. You can go to VMware, create an account, and download it. The installation is super simple. What we're going to do here, we're going to download Kali Linux, and we're going to go through the installation process. Again, this is an absolute beginner's video. If you're looking to see how things are done, how to use different tools, we're not going to get into it. We're going to go through the download of the ISO and the installation process. Now, with that being said, as of the time of this video, today is 11/16/24. These are the current versions of Kali. Is 2024.3. When we come to the download section of Kali, let me go back to kali.org. Then you go to installer images. We're going to select this because the other option is that you can already download the virtual machines. We're going to get the ISO and we're going to go through the installations, and maybe if you're interested, I can create another video for this. So I'm going to click on installer images, and this is what you need to pay attention to. Again, if you're new to computers, or if you're new to networking, you have to pay attention to the architecture that you are using. We have the 64-bit architectures, and we have the 32-bit architecture, and we have the Apple architecture. This is for the new CPUs. So if you're running a on a Windows machine, most likely, as I'm running on this computer, the architecture is going to be either 64 or 32 bits. You can install 32 bits on a 64 bits, but you cannot install a 64 bits on 32. It's one of those things, I'm not remember. But anyway, just make sure that the download that you're gonna get matches the architecture for your computer. Most likely, if you have a decent computer, it's gonna support 64 bits. The other thing that you have to pay attention to is this: which of these are you going to download and start playing with, right? If you pay attention to this, it says complete offline installation with customization, and it is 4 gigabytes. So which means that when you download it, you're gonna pre-download it with many tools installed, which is something that you would like to do. Or you could do the untested images that they push out every week, for what I see here, right? Or you could do the net installer. All packages are downloaded during the installation. You're gonna download a lot more. And this is gonna be, I don't see this. This is 484 megabytes, I believe. This one is 1 gig. Or if you know that you're gonna be downloading this and then you're not gonna have internet access after you installed this version of Kali Linux, you may want to consider using this option for everything, which is going to download everything it's got at this specific time. It doesn't mean that it's going to download future things. It's not going to happen. But everything that is available is going to get downloaded, so that this is super useful if you're going to be using that in systems that do not have internet access or the internet access is very limited and monitored. So, and as you could see, that's going to be 12 gigs. So for this video, I'm going to download this version. So I'm going to click this, and this is going to start the download process. I'm going to pause the video until this is done, then I'll continue. Okay, the image was successfully downloaded as you see here. Now I'm going to open up VMware, and I'm going to go to create new virtual machine. So I'm going to click on that option. And the option that I'm going to select is install this image ISO. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to browse for the folder where I have that image, and that's going to be the download folder. As you could see, when I select the download folder, it's going to show me all the ISO files in it. If you only have one, it's going to be only one, but I download a lot of things. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to click on open, and I'm going to click next. This is going to prompt you for the operating system type. To be honest with you, you could select, anything in here and then, continue. But when you select this, VMware is going to try to set up an architecture based for that specific operating system that you are selecting. As I have mentioned in other videos, Kali Linux is not an operating system in and of itself. It is a packaged, I'm not going to even say a packaged operating system. It's a packaged toolset that runs on Ubuntu or Debian operating system. So that's the one that you're going to select. Click on next. And then you are going to just name it whatever it is. So I'm going to name this Kali, whatever you want to name it, November. And then you're going to select the location where that installation file or where the VMware file is going to reside under. You could leave it as the default, or you could move it to any other location if you would like. With the browse button, click on next. And then right here, I would advise you to pay attention to what you're doing here, because if you're going to be testing and doing a lot of maybe downloading, upgrading, and doing more testing, you would like to have more space than not having enough space. Remember that a couple of screens or menus before this one, there was an option to select the operating system that you were using, and we selected Ubuntu, right? Based on Ubuntu's minimum requirements, you could run it on 20 gigs, which is what we have here. I don't want to do that. I'm going to have 60 gigs. Right? Because I don't want to run out of space. And then you have the options of either storing that VMware on a single disk or a split virtual disk into multiple files. I personally select the default option for this to split the virtual disk into multiple files. This is a test environment, and I'm assuming that if you are following and watching this video, it's going to be the same for you. So I'm going to click on next. And then right here, in my case, running VMware 16, I'm going to have the option of customizing the hardware. So let me click on customize hardware, because remember, the hypervisor is going to be creating the virtual hardware for this virtual machine. And we're going to specify how much RAM we want to assign to it. Now, this obviously is going to be based on two things. Number one, it's going to be based on the requirements of the operating system, in this case, Ubuntu. And we know that 4 gigs is enough for that. And number two, how much RAM you have on your computer, right? You're not going to be able to add 8 gigs of RAM to this VM if you only have 4 or 6. So the more RAM you have on your host device, the more you can assign to it. I would advise you to start with the default. In this case, in my case, it's going to be 4. And then once you start testing and installing and running tools, if you see any type of the system working sluggish, then you can add more RAM, because that's something that you can easily customize anytime in VMware. The other thing that I would advise you to do is this. Every time that you're doing testing, especially testing security tools like this and downloading things from the web, I would advise you to have a separate segment for that that is not connected to your home or office computers. The reason for that is because, if you're not familiar with this, once you become familiar, you know where you're downloading things from, you know what you are downloading, you have different security layers that monitors the downloads and the connections and all that. But if you're learning, start with NAT. What NAT's going to do is going to create its own isolated network outside of the network that your host device is connected to, right? And you could have multiple NAT devices on the same NATed network. What I'm going to do in this case for this video, I'm going to bridge my connection. What it means is that whatever IP address I have connected or that I have right here on my host device, right? The system is gonna work, VMware is gonna use that network interface also to get its own IP address from the router. So this is going to be the NIC that your computer is going to have, and VMware is going to create a virtual NIC on the same physical NIC. So you're going to be on the same network as your host device. So I do it that way because I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm downloading, and I'm comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable with that and you are in the learning process, you are getting your feet wet into network security and cybersecurity, then I would advise you to do NAT, but I'm going to choose bridged. So I'm going to do that, and the other settings, I personally don't configure them, the printer, the USB ports, and all that. I don't do that. You may want to do the processors, depending on how many processors you have on your system, but if you don't know what you have, just leave it as the default and click on continue. And now I'm going to click finish. Once I click finish, that's going to create the VM, and I'm going to start the VM by clicking on the power button. So what's going to happen is that here we have a new fresh installation of Kali. So in this case, you have multiple options to install Kali, right? The first option, you have graphically install advanced options, accessible dark, and install with speech synthesis. Now, for this video, for what we're going to be doing, or for what you're going to be doing most of the time, you can do the graphical install. So I'm going to click enter, and that's going to do its magic. Now, as you could see, it brought me over to the select language, and this is based on the information the VMware is grabbing from the host computer. So it knows that my language is English based on the operating system on the host device that I'm using. So it's going to detect it automatically. So whatever language you're using or whatever language you want to have, just make sure you select it. Then you click continue. Then it's going to select your location. As I mentioned before, this information is being detected based on my host operating system. So if that works for you, click continue. If not, select the appropriate location for you. And then also when it comes to the keyboard configuration, American English in my case, and then it's going to go over to load the additional components to continue with the installation process. Now I'm pausing and stopping the video because a lot of this thing is just a wizard in the previous video. I don't know if you've noticed, it's going to prompt you that it's detecting the network, which is great. And right here, it's going to ask you for the host name, and that's going to be the name of the computer. So that is how this computer is going to be seen or identified by other computers in the network. And this is the information that it's going to use to register it in DNS. You could name it whatever you want to name it, like Kali 2024 or anything that you would like to use, as long as you use accepted naming conventions that are going to be accepted in DNS. Click on continue. And then it's going to ask you to configure the domain if you have one. If you don't have a domain, or if you don't want to join this to a domain, just click continue. It's totally fine. Now it's going to ask you for the user name. That's going to be the first user. I'm going to use this word loosely, the admin user, that is going to have all the privileges as for the first time when you log in. So just name it whatever you want to name it. I'm going to type in my name, and then it's going to say that's going to be the name for the user, and then you're going to type in whatever password you want to set up for this user, right? So remember, if you're going to be using this in a private network, you could follow your own password policies or password criteria. But if you're going to be doing this in a network environment, I'm sure you're going to have to align this with your password policy. So I'm going to click on continue, and then it's going to select the time zone, yes, and configuring the clock, and it's going to detect the disk. So once you get to this section, as it's doing its magic in the background, notice this section right here, right? So we're going to have the options. I'm not going to do this now of installing the VMware tools on the guest operating system, which is going to offer and provide more functionality. Not Kali Linux functionality, but better functionality of VMware management between the guest OS and the host OS. This has nothing to do with Kali Linux. This comes from VMware, and we're going to get to it at a later time. So let me get out of here. And if you know what you are doing, you can select the disk and partition your disks and be fancy the way you would like to set up your Kali Linux. In this case, the same way with Windows, right? When you install Windows, you can create multiple partitions and disks and so on and so forth. You could also do that here. Again, this is a beginner's video, and I would advise you to select guided, use the entire disk, so you don't have to worry about partitions and naming disk and creating this and mounting disks here and there. So just click on continue, and it's going to select the disk that we created previously at the beginning, that we allocated the space for that disk. We're going to click continue, and then continue right here. All files are going to be installed in one disk, or you could separate them. Again, I would advise you to install everything in one location. Continue. And this is just telling you, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, you know what, it's totally fine. Just do it. Continue. And then, are you sure if you continue the changes below listed will be written to this? Yes, you want to write those changes to the disk, because that's what the system is going to do for you. So click continue. And as you could see, it's partitioning the disk and doing everything that it's doing in the background. Now, this is going to take some time. I'm going to pause this for one moment until we get another interesting video. Okay, we are at the software selection point. We're almost ready to start the installation, or for the system to start the official installation. And this is going to have to do, what desktop environment do you want to use? Do you want to use the Kali defaults? Do you want to use Genome? Do you want to use KDE? Again, for this video, for testing purposes, just accept the defaults. But I would encourage you, once you are more familiar with it, go through the installation one more time and select another option, so you can get a feeling of what those options are and how they differ from one environment to the other. So I'm going to click continue, and this is retrieving the software and is selecting the software to be installed. Okay, so we have another important prompt here, and that is to install grub bootloader. And in this case, this is going to be the only operating system on the partition that we selected. So it is okay to do that. If you were doing something that we used to do back in the days, I remember back In the late 90s and 2000, we used to have multiple computers booting up off of the same physical computer, the same hard drive. Then you have to make sure that you were playing and doing the proper bootloader. But in this case, this is a virtual machine, and this is the only operating system that you're going to be running on that virtual device. So it's totally fine. Just click continue. And then you're going to select where do you want to select it. And you're going to select the dev SDA, click continue. And it's installing the bootloader. So the installation is almost finished, which is really good. So depending on the host device that you use on the computer and on the resources, it may take a long time or not that long. On my end, it took about like 15 minutes to go through the installation, but it may take longer on your end. So, or maybe less on your end, depending on how fast your computer is. Okay, and the installation was complete. Now, in this case, we are running this on a virtual machine. You don't have any CD or USB connected to it that you have to pull out, so it doesn't boot up off of it one more time. So it is safe to click on continue to reboot. So I'm going to do this right now. And it's going to go through the reboot process. Once the reboot process is completed, as you could see here, you're always going to get this the first time you're booting. So make sure that you select the first option unless you want to go fancy and do the advanced setup in your case. So let me bring this over. So as you could see, we're still getting prompted to install the VMware tools. We're going to be doing that next. I would advise you to do that because it's going to enhance the experience that you are going to have with VMware. So I'm going to type in the credentials of the user I created before. Something to keep in mind is that user names are case sensitive, something that is not in Windows machines, and passwords are also case sensitive. So let's make sure that you type in the proper username and password, and this is gonna log in, and boom, here I am, my Kali device. Now I created other video helping people navigate the Kali GUI interface. You may want to check that video. I'm gonna link it to the description of this video. And I have multiple videos of how to use different tools and all of that. Now, but before I go there, let me click on install tools so we are able to do this. And again, when you install the tools, you're going to be able to resize the window. You're going to be able, actually this is resizing, which is pretty cool. Sometimes it's not going to be able to resize it unless you install the tools, but you're going to have better experience when you install the tools. So I'm going to click on install tools. You could do it this way, or you could do it via the command line. So let me come here. Okay, but actually I was run. I think that at one point you could run him from the GUI, but it doesn't let me. So if you open up this zipped or tarred file, you're going to have more instructions, VMware tools, distro, and if you click on open, you're going to have the install. But if you try to open this, is going to tell you that you have to run the VMware-install PL from the command line. So what we need to do, we need to extract this, right? And then we're going to have access to it. So let me come here. Extract to. We're going to extract it to, where is it? It is media CD-ROM. Let me get out of here. Where did it send it to? Or we can also try, let me try this because this is becoming too annoying for me right now. There's a command that I've seen. Let me see if I can find it. No, actually, I believe I got it. So if you right click on the tar file and you click on extract to, this is going to go through the process. And something that I didn't see before is that this window was maximized. So I didn't see the option right here that you can select the folders that you want to extract it to. In my case, for this video, again, this is for testing purposes, I'm going to select desktop and I'm going to click on extract. And as you could see here, we have it. So the instructions that we saw before, let me open this one more time. The instructions say to run the PL file from the command line. So what we need to do is we are going to open up the command line, the command prompt. I clicked cut instead of copy. So let me come back here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to open up, as you could see here. Remember, let me just give you a brief intro to Kali. This is your application menu. You're going to have all the applications categorized in here. Remember that one of the options that we saw was to download everything if you have an airtight system that does not have internet access. That installation was 12 gigs. This is 4. So you were going to have way more tools and everything was going to be installed here. So this is what you have. You can configure the different settings from the settings menu. Right here you can configure the appearance, anything that you would like to configure. You can configure the desktop icon, so on and so forth. So I have another video for this, so I'm not going to spend much time here. What I want to do is click on the command prompt on your terminal. And once it opens, you have to be familiar with Linux command line to maneuver through Kali Linux. Is highly advisable. There are many things you can do without knowing the command line, but it's better if you do. So as you could see, I'm right here in my home folder, and I extracted everything to my desktop. And remember, home directories are case sensitive too, so I'm going to change the directory to my desktop. And in here, this is the directory that I want to change to. So cd VMware. And then remember that we're going to type this executable right in here. So let me do it. And I'm going to hit enter. And the reason for that, execute, please run the program as super user. So you have to use sudo because you need root privileges for this. And then type in the password. And yes, you want to do this. Yes. Do you want to do this? Yes. Do you want to do everything in here? Say yes. 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 Override no, and that's gonna do the installation. So I'm gonna post the video one more time and let this finish. Okay, and after a couple of prompts, yes and no, it was installed successfully. You know, there's nothing magic to it. This is one of the ways that you could do it. I'm gonna close this command prompt. I'm gonna close this, and this. I don't need this anymore, so I can unmount this volume and I can delete this folder because I don't need it any longer. So that is one of the many ways that you can install Kali Linux. And in this case, I used Kali Linux on VMware Player to do my installation. Now the journey begins. This is what you're going to be using now. Something that I just want to mention, this is where you're going to, shut down your computer. If you click on this button, shut down, restart, log off, suspend, so on and so forth. This is the beginning. I hope you found this information useful. I know that it was 30 minutes long. And if you made it this far, all I ask for you is to let me know that you did, because I'm curious to see how many people follow these videos. I know that these videos are sometimes used for references. Some people can skip many portions and advance and rewind and fast forward, and it's totally fine. Thank you for watching. I hope this is useful. Check out the other videos that I have in my channel about security, cybersecurity, how to use different tools. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll try my best to get back to you, but I don't promise that I'll do it in a timely manner, but I try my best. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next video.